looking at some Marvel and DC copycats. There are literally hundreds of thousands of comic book characters out there in the universe. Whether it be Marvel characters or DC, there really is a never-ending list of good guys and bad guys. However, because Marvel and DC are pretty similar, there have been some copycats made. Today, we're going to be going over some examples. Number 1. Marvel copied Green Arrow's character from the DC Comics 23 years after his first debut. Hawkeye is very similar to the DC version of Green Arrow, and he appeared in the 57th issue of Tales of Suspense. Much like the DC version, Hawkeye uses a bow with a wide range of arrows to deal damage to his enemies. Their outfits also look very similar, although there is an exception of a different color scheme. Hawkeye is also in a relationship with Mockingbird, a character that resembles Green Arrow's love partner, Black Canary. There are some striking similarities between the two characters, and it's very clear that Marvel thought that they would just copy DC with this one. Number 2. Although the original Damage character, introduced in 1994, has absolutely no resemblance to the Hulk, the newer version from 2018 definitely does. Much like Bruce Banner, Ethan changes into a raging monster and constantly tries to keep his alter ego from triggering the transformation. The second Damage is a product of the Damage Project, which was designed for creating living weapons of mass destruction, which is quite similar to the origin of the Hulk. Number 3. After the DC Comics introduced us to Jack Kirby's New Gods, Marvel gave Jim Starlin the task to create their own version of the characters. Jim had a lot of work on his hands, but eventually he came up with Marvel's equivalent of New Gods, which were called Titans. Their main man was Thanos, and he was inspired by DC Metron. However, after Jim's boss saw the drawing of Thanos, he told him to beef him up. If you're gonna steal one of the New Gods, at least rip off Darkseid, the really good one. So the result of this is that Thanos was a slightly modified Darkseid, and he turned out to be the Avengers' worst nightmare, just like Darkseid is to the Justice League. Number 4. Vision is a very popular character thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as we saw him in the movies. But did you know that the character was very strongly based off of DC's Red Tornado? Vision appeared just 2 months after DC revealed Red Tornado, having him appear in the 57th issue of The Avengers. They look pretty similar, with the exception of a few different colors and a little bit of designing here and there, but you can tell that Vision is a pretty clear copycat of Red Tornado. I mean, they are both superpowered androids after all. Number 5. Since 1969, we have seen many variations of Hyperion in the Marvel Comics, and every single one of them resembles Superman in some way or another. The origin of the character is almost identical to that of Superman as well, in a sense that both characters were the last survivors of their destroyed planet. Their costumes are very similar, and their powers are also very much alike. It's very clear Marvel copied Superman for their Hyperion character, but honestly, who can blame them? Superman is pretty awesome. Number 6. Did you know that Deadpool was heavily inspired by Deathstroke? Well, if you didn't know, now you do. Let's just put the fact that their costumes are very similar and their skill sets and weapons as well, because Deadpool also had a healing factor just like Deathstroke does. As well as this, the most obvious nod towards the DC counterpart is his name, Wade Wilson, which is an inside joke to being related to Slade Wilson, also known as Deathstroke. Number 7. Wasp and Bumblebee are pretty much the exact same characters. If you're not a comic book fan, you probably would not be able to tell these characters apart. Bumblebee made her debut in 1977, 14 years after the Wasp. So it's pretty clear that DC copied Marvel with this character. Bumblebee had the ability to fly and shrink to the size of an insect, and indeed her name was a big nod to her Marvel counterpart as well. Her outfit is also pretty much identical to that of the Wasp. Number 8. And last but not least, we have Red Lion, who is very similar to that of Marvel's Black Panther. Red Lion is a pretty new character from the DC Universe, appearing for the first time in 2016. Just like the Black Panther rules over Wakanda, Red Lion is the president and director of a nation called Bardunya. Google, how do you pronounce this?
Bardunya.
Ugh. Google Translate lady, I hate you. Alright, you know what? There's no official pronunciation that I can find, so right now, this is canon. I'm gonna call it Bardunya. That's the name of the country. Everybody just go with me. You can argue about it in the comments if you really have to. Okay, so his intentions are very different from that of Black Panther. He's on the evil side of things. However, you can say that both of the characters are very similar. Red Lion has a skill set that is very similar to that of his counterpart, and although his costume is a different color, it is pretty much the exact same as Black Panther's. That's all we have for today though. What'd you think of this list? Let us know in the comments below what you thought. But with that being said, this is the end of the video, so I'll see you in the next one.